Good morning. This is Quiet Echo. I'm Caleb Mercer, and I'll be your host for today's episode. I need to talk to you about a number today. The number is 90%. That is the size of the property tax discount Alaska's governor wants to give a gas pipeline company. Not for a year. Not for 5. For the lifetime of the project. 30 years or more. Let me make sure you heard that. The standard property tax rate on oil and gas infrastructure in Alaska is 20 mils. Governor Mike Dunleavy wants to cut it to 2 mils for the Alaska LNG project. At full assessed value for a $50 billion project, the difference between the two numbers is roughly $660 million per year, every year, for a generation. Senate Majority Leader Kathy Giesel, a Republican, called it a pretty big ask. She is being polite. Now, I am not here to tell you whether a gas pipeline should be built. Alaska has been talking about a gas line for decades. People I respect are on both sides. I have a question, and it is not a tax policy question. It is a constitutional one. Alaska has a constitution. Most people know that. What most people do not know is that it contains the first article in any state constitution that deals solely with natural resources. Article the 8th. Section 2 says, and I am going to read this to you word for word. The legislature shall provide for the utilization, development, and conservation of all natural resources belonging to the state, including land and waters, for the maximum benefit of its people. Maximum benefit of its people. Not maximum benefit of the developer. Not maximum benefit of the investment firm. The people. I want to tell you where those words came from because it matters. In 1955, the delegates met in Fairbanks to write a constitution for the state Alaska would become. They wrote Article the 8th for one reason. For decades, outside-owned canneries had been hauling salmon out of Alaska's waters through fish traps, while local fishermen saw almost nothing in return. Territorial Governor Ernest Gruening called it exploitation by absentee interests. The delegates abolished fish traps on the spot. And then they wrote the principle into the highest law of the land. Alaska's natural resources are a public trust. They belong to the people. And when they are developed, the people come first. That is not a suggestion. That is the Constitution. Now let me tell you who wants the 90% discount. Glenfarne Energy Transition, a New York-based investment firm. They acquired a 75% stake in the Alaska LNG project in March of last year. The state kept 25%. Glenfarne has told lawmakers this is a private sector project. They will bear all costs, secure all investors, accept all risks. Fine. If that is true, I have a simple question. Why does a privately financed, privately profitable project need the largest property tax break in Alaska history? Glenfarne has not made a final investment decision. They have not released an updated cost estimate. The original figure of $44 billion is widely considered outdated. Borough mayors have asked whether local governments will see enough revenue from a 2 mil rate to cover the impact of construction on their roads, their schools, and their services. Good questions. Nobody has answered them. And here is the part that should make every Alaskan sit up straight. The state's own legislative consultant, a company called Gaffney Klein, which is a subsidiary of Baker Hughes, a company that plans to supply equipment for this project, has suggested the developer may need additional concessions providing what they call fiscal stability. In plain English, that means the 2 mil rate may be the beginning of the ask, not the end. Senator Jesse Keel of Juneau put it plainly. He said there is a built-in assumption that a big gas line means big revenue. And he said that the assumption has two problems. One is Alaska has been hearing it for decades, and the revenue has not arrived. Two, without substantial changes to the tax structure, it may never arrive, even if the pipeline is built. Governor Dunleavy says 2 mils are better than the zero the state collects if the project is not built. The arithmetic is correct. The principle is not. Better than nothing is not the standard the Constitution sets. The standard is maximum benefit of the people. Those are not the same thing. And the governor knows it or should, because the governor took an oath. Article the 12th, Section 5 of the Alaska Constitution. Every public officer takes it. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Alaska, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as governor to the best of my ability. Support and defend. Not set aside when the deal seems big enough. Not bend when a developer says the project depends on it. Support and defend. I stock shelves for a living. I am not a constitutional scholar, but I can read. And I remember what those 55 delegates were trying to prevent. They had watched a territory's wealth walk out the door in someone else's pocket for decades. They wrote Article the 8th so it would not happen again. The gas under the North Slope was there before Glenfarne arrived. It will be there after they leave. The Constitution was written to make sure that when Alaska's resources are developed, the people who own them get a fair return. Not a token. Not whatever the developer decides to offer. A fair return negotiated from strength with the public interest as the measure of a good deal. That promise should not be sold at a 90% discount. And the man who swore to defend it should not be the one offering the sale. This has been the Quiet Echo. I'm Caleb Mercer. Thanks for being here. This podcast is part of the fictional Cedar Valley news series. While the people in town are fictional, the national events they reflect on are real. Want to know the full story behind Cedar Valley? Teresa, Caleb, Dan, and the community you've come to know in these editorials first came together in Quiet Echo. Discover how a small town found its way from fear to fellowship, one quiet act of courage at a time. Available on Amazon.
You've been listening to the Cedar Valley News Podcast, where small-town voices meet the headlines shaping our world. From faith and family to front porches and fields. We'll be back with more stories connecting real lives to real events. Until next time, keep your porch light on, your faith strong, and your heart open.